Good evening, everyone. I declare the Ordinary Council meeting of the 30th of June 2026 held in Council Chambers at Level 2, 388 Hay Street, Subiaco, open at 5:34 p.m. Good evening, councillors and staff, also members of the public, and no external media yet, but I'm sure he's not far off. Okay, taking attendances now. I see 8 councillors and a mayor here in person this evening, so good evening to you all. And a slightly new look executive leadership team, the CEO Colin Cameron and your 4 directors, including our new Director Corporate Services, Elizabeth Connolly. So welcome, Ms Connolly. I'm sure it will be the first of many as part of the executive leadership team. Okay, councillors. Any leave of absence requests this evening? I saw a couple sent in via email. Councillor Powell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'd like to request leave of absence from the 24th of August to the 28th of August, inclusive to attend a conference, please.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Pine, thank you. I'll put that to the vote now, and because everyone's here in person, we can vote with the pressing of buttons this evening. Thanks, councillors. The leave is unanimously approved. Was there someone else seeking leave? Councillor De Vries.
I wish to apply for leave from the 13th of July to the 20th of July to attend a conference.
Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Johnston and Councillor Jones. Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. Right, that leave is approved also. I don't think anyone else is. Oh, of course. Councillor Burns.
I'd like to apply for leave for actually all of July and August. I can't even get my months straight. So the months of July and through to the end of August.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder. Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Johnston. I'll put that to the vote.
Hang on.
Okay, Councillor Burns' leave is also unanimously approved. No other leave of absence requests? Nope. We'll move on. Disclosure of interest. I know of at least one. Councillor Powell.
Thank you. I, Rick Powell, wish to declare an interest in agenda item C1 to be considered by Council at its meeting on June the 30th, 2026. The type of interest I wish to declare is impartiality pursuant to clause 22.2 of the Code of Conduct for Council members, committee members and candidates. The nature of my interest is my home is on the local heritage survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other disclosures? Councillor De Vries.
I, Rosemary De Vries, wish to declare an interest in agenda item 11.1, I believe, to be considered by Council at its meeting on 30th of June 2026. The type of interest I wish to declare is financial pursuant to section 5.6A of the Local Government Act 1995. The nature of my interest is I am the applicant who has applied to attend the Transforming Politics for Women conference.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other disclosures this evening? Doesn't look like it. Okay, there were no public questions previously taken on notice, so we'll move to public question time, beginning with Wendy Perkins of Park and of Park Street, Subiaco. Ms Perkins.
Good evening. I have sent an email to all the councillors. I assume I don't need to read it all, just my questions. Okay. So my questions, can you please clarify that all the properties from 102 to 108 Park Street will be heritage listed or not in the same manner?
Director of Development Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Thank you for your question. And I know you're going to read another question, but the answer is the same for questions 1 and 2. So the proposed heritage listing, it's been prepared in a way that all of the properties at 102 to 108 Park will be considered as a group. So there's a recommendation and a consideration for all the properties.
Thank you. And just to clarify, question 2 was going to be that 102 to 108 Park Street Subi are part of a strata, and therefore would they be grouped as one in the decision process? Different listing levels would pose issues with the strata, and the answer was as stated. Okay, that's already the end of public question time. We'll move to public statements, beginning with a statement on C1. Submitted by a gentleman who I don't think is actually here. That was a statement by Peter McDonald, Onslow Road, Shenton Park. It was going to be a statement on agenda item C1, but given he's not here, we can move on to C2. Got several statements on C2. We'll start with James Setiawan of Rockaby Road, Subiaco, with a statement to be read by Murray Rowe. Good evening, Mr. Rowe.
Well, thank you, Mayor, councillors. Nice to be back in front of you all, and very familiar faces out there. Thank you. So the property is owned by James Setiawan, and I'm speaking on his behalf and on his wife, children, and a greater family. There's a bunch of brothers and sisters and their children who own the building at 136 Rockaby Road. He apologises for not being in attendance tonight because he's due at a medical conference. He's a doctor. He's stating here that after a long search, last year we decided to purchase this property as a long-term family investment. However, less than a year into the ownership, we got notified that the building was to be put under consideration for heritage. At that time, we absolutely had no knowledge about the heritage and its process. Our first step was to speak to the previous owner, myself, to gain knowledge and understand the property's history. We also met with the city officers, including Mr. Petrosky and Ms. Berenger, to better understand the proposal. While those discussions were helpful, we felt that we needed to fully understand how the category rating had been reached. But rather than simply objecting, we wanted to have a better understanding of the assessment. We then engaged town planners who requested us to also engage the heritage experts so that the family would make an informed decision. After going through that process, we now have a clear understanding of the heritage assessment criteria. Whilst we acknowledge the city's recommendation of level 2, the professional consultants were engaged formed a different opinion. Therefore, our family collectively decided that the advice we received was reasonable, and we maintained differing opinion than that of the city. We understand that Murray Rowe owned the property for 25 years before us, and before him, the former owner held it even longer, in fact 57 years before myself, thus being assured that we bought this in a long-term passive family investment. And thank you for the consideration of our family's position, sincerely. Thank you.
Thank you for the statement. And Mr. Rowe, I believe you've submitted a statement in your own right, so we'll hear that one now as well, please. Another statement on C2.
Well, thank you. So it's C2, I think it's point 11, 136 Rockaby. Some may know my history in Subiaco. It goes back to the late 70s as your local pharmacist, and of course my extended time serving on council. It's been a pleasure to have most of my career here in Subiaco. It's been fantastic. Still here, still involved in a couple of pharmacies. During this time in June 2000, I purchased 136 Rockaby from the retiring Timewell family, who ran the retail shop for the period of 57 years. They had approval for a major redevelopment of the building in the late 1990s as a result of the ageing of the building. Those areas rebuilt included the total front 40% of the building, the upper level associated with that, the roofing, the rear entrance walls, the northern windows relocated, which have been done twice, and their sizing changed, and the southern structures also altered. The new building design was not closely reflective of the original. In my 25 years of ownership, I had 3 development approvals submitted by my representative. Being on council, I had a representative do it for me, and completed by council planning staff. Many of those staff actually went on to work for the State Planning Commissions. They're very highly qualified staff. These approvals were done, so the 3 approvals were done to house the expansion of the medical centre in the upper level, that's Rockaby GP. And at no stage was there any concern or mention of the items before you tonight. The staircase in question was removed, largely rebuilt due to its condition, and it looked like, it was made to look the way it was, but not with the same materials necessarily. It was relocated, pointing a different direction, and it had to be altered in its height as it was too short. I must say the concerns about the functionality of the reference to the airspace when we have tenants' leases sharing that space by definition in the leases, and the use of the beams in that space for promotional material and Christmas decoration, that would be a very interesting concept to manage going forward. So to summarise, that period spanned 82 years of ownership between the two of us, of trading in the building. It underwent 4 planning approvals, and none of those items were ever mentioned in the approvals. The building, I can say, is in very good hands with a conservative long-term owner. Going forward, the leases do reflect controls over what can be done, and everybody is very happy with the status quo. The owners, I've got to say, are a lovely family, and they're sorry they can't be here tonight, but if I've done my time, I'll
Thanks for the statement. Another statement on C2 from Dina Mujati of Hocking Heritage Architects on behalf of the owner.
You. Firstly, I would like to state that I am a heritage architect at Hocking Heritage and Architecture, and I am grateful for the opportunity to make this statement with the authority of the owner. We have reviewed the heritage assessment from City of Subiaco and are of the opinion that it does not accurately reflect the appropriate management category for 136 Rockaby Road, Subiaco. We object to the proposed management category of Level 2 for the following reasons. Changes over time have eroded a lot of the original fabric internally. These changes have been approved by City of Subiaco, demonstrating their support for the alterations for the various uses, including the second-story medical center additions to the north, south, and west. Other uses have been a pharmacy and prior to that, a retail clothing store. The remaining evidence of the original King's Hall is a remnant portion of the ceiling and proscenium arch, which was considered as being of handsome design. Views of this remnant element are permanently obscured from public view due to the current fit-out. Externally, the street presentation and the rear elevation are very different from the original due to previous alterations. While we acknowledge the historic and social values of the former King's Hall, the level of physical change due to past and current uses have had an adverse impact on its cultural heritage significance. 136 Rockaby Road, Subiaco no longer meets the requirements for a Level 2 place of considerable significance with its minimal original elements and highly compromised facades. Our assessment is that the lack of contribution to the streetscape and minimal landmark value have eroded its aesthetic value and authenticity, noting that these are required to be of a high level to be worthy of a Level 2 nomination. It is therefore our opinion that a management category of Level 3 in the City of Subiaco Heritage List is more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Another statement on C2 from Peter Simpson of PTS Town Planning on behalf of the property owner.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. Peter Simpson from PTS Town Planning. We act for Pure Silver Proprietary Limited, the owner of 18 Chester Street, Subiaco, who are here tonight. The landowner objects to the inclusion of 18 Chester Street on the heritage list. The site is currently located within the Chester's subdivision heritage area and therefore is already subject to heritage provisions under the deemed provisions. It's interesting that the council item states that a heritage area designation provides special controls to conserve and enhance the key heritage features, elements and notable character of the streetscape rather than recognising and managing the heritage values of individual places. However, the first objective of the heritage area policy is to conserve existing buildings identified as making considerable significance. So we question the basis on the commentary in the report and maintain our position that the site has already been in the heritage area, has been since 2014, and we see no need for it to be individually listed. As part of the submission, we included a plan of the dwelling and highlighted the areas that have been part of substantial change since 1989. And it just shows that the three front rooms are the only original intact part of the building. And so therefore it's actually consistent with the heritage area policy rather than individual listing. There's only less than 40% of the house is original. The landowner objects to listing of on the heritage list as it would add multiple layers of additional bureaucracy and costs associated with its individual listing, and that's identified in your own policy of individual listing and additional information you have to provide. This is also acknowledged in the council report in the response to the submission. There are a number of outstanding issues also on the table, including insurance on heritage buildings, and now requires a heritage valuation, which potentially may increase insurance costs. And there's obviously still an argument about increase and decrease in house values. The landowner's view is that the heritage area is a better form of protection and a less of a penalty to the owners. The local planning policy provides that the council will have regard to any submissions, and in particular, the submissions of the landowners affected. And as we state, the landowner objects to the listing on the heritage list. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. A statement from Danielle Merger of Urbanista Town Planning, also on C2.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Daniela Merger, and I'm speaking on behalf of the owner of number 136 Rockaby Road, Subiaco. We've reviewed the City of Subiaco's heritage assessment and respectfully object to the proposed management category of Level 2 considerable significance. In our professional opinion, a Level 3 category is far more appropriate, having regard to Local Planning Policy 3.2, Assessment of Cultural Heritage Significance. Given the site's current condition, the significant erosion of the original fabric, its limited contribution to the streetscape, and the implications of a statutory heritage listing. At the outset, we acknowledge the historic and social values associated with the former King's Hall. We're not saying that the history of the place should be ignored. However, there is an important distinction between acknowledging the history of the place and assigning a Level 2 grading to a building that has been substantially altered over time. Under LPP 3.2, a Level 2 place is expected to have a high level of aesthetic, historic, scientific and/or social value, and will typically have a high degree of authenticity. The policy does recognise that under Level 2, some alterations may have occurred, but only where those alterations do not obscure an understanding of the cultural heritage values of the place. The city's own assessment confirms that the remaining significance is largely associated with isolated remnants of the former hall, particularly the pressed metal ceiling and the proscenium arch. However, those elements are internal to the building. They have been substantially altered in their setting and have limited public visibility or public appreciation. They do not make a meaningful contribution to the Rockaby Road streetscape, and in our view, they do not justify a level 2 grading for the property. With respect to the proposed heritage listing for our client's property, our key concerns are as follows. Firstly, there have been a significant erosion of the original fabric over many years. The property has undergone substantial internal and external alterations to accommodate evolving commercial and community needs. Second, very little of the original King's Hall remains in a meaningful or functional way. The remaining internal elements are isolated and obscured by the current fit-out and building configuration. While they may assist in understanding the former use of the building, they should not be elevated to a level 2 grading in circumstances where the broader building has low integrity and limited authenticity. A level 3 management category is a more balanced and proportionate response. Under LPP 3.2, level 3 applies to places that contribute to the evolution of the city and help illustrate important aspects of the city's history, but do not warrant the higher level of protection associated with level 2. A level 3 grading would still acknowledge the historic and social.
Okay, so Ms. Merger, that's 3 minutes. I'm not sure how closely you've been sticking to the submitted statement, so I'm therefore not really sure how much longer you need. Could you finish up in a short little while extra? Thank you. Cheers.
Okay. A level 3 grading would still acknowledge the historic and social associations of the former King's Hall. However, it would allow the heritage to be recognised in other ways, such as archival recording, interpretation, public art, plaques, naming or design references. This approach appropriately preserves the story of King's Hall without overstating the significance of the remaining altered and internal fabric. Thank you.
Thanks for the statement. And finally, I was handed a statement late this evening it was submitted by John Barella and Jennifer Barella. According to Mr. Barella, it was submitted before the deadline. We don't have any record of it. However, I'd see little harm in allowing the statement. It's a statement on C2 relating to what I think is a different property to what we've heard spoken about so far this evening. Mr. Barella, if you want to read the statement, please go ahead.
Our family has proudly lived at 18 Chester Street, Subiaco, for the past 35 years. During that time, we have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars maintaining and improving our home without receiving any financial assistance from either the City of Subiaco or any heritage authority. On the 27th of February 26, our town planner, Peter Simpson, lodged a formal ejection with the Heritage Office on our behalf. His submission raised a number of important concerns, including that our property is already protected under the deemed provisions as part of the Chester Subdivision Heritage Area. The Heritage Area provides planning controls to preserve places that make significant contribution to the heritage character of the area. The purpose of these controls is to conserve the overall streetscape and heritage significance of the precinct. In our view, these protections already achieve the objective, making an additional heritage listing unnecessary. To the best of our knowledge, Peter Simpson never received a response from the Heritage Officer addressing the issues raised in his submissions. I also wrote to the Heritage Officer on 2 separate occasions explaining that the home was substantially rebuilt in 1989 and enclosed plans showing that only approximately 2.7 original rooms remain. Despite providing the information, I did not receive a direct response in respect to the 2.7 rooms. In our opinion, the retention of only 2.7 rooms does not justify the entire home being individually heritage listed. Whilst we acknowledge the support and preservation of the original heritage fabric that remains, It is unreasonable for an individual heritage listing to apply to a home that has otherwise been substantially reconstructed. An individual heritage listing would impose significant and unnecessary burdens on the owners, including additional development controls and extra planning approval for future works, resulting in additional time, cost and complexity. Further restrictions on the ability to maintain, renovate and improve the home, potential financial penalties arising from heritage replacement valuations required for property insurance, which may lead to substantially increased insurance premiums. Whilst we believe the best way to protect Subiaco's heritage is through well-managed heritage precincts preserving the character of entire streets rather than imposing unnecessary restrictions on and burdens on individual properties. This is precisely the approach the City of Subiaco has successfully adopted through its heritage areas. We also question whether owners have accepted individual heritage listings are fully aware of the recent.
Okay, Mr. Barella, that I should have clarified that's the system cutting out at the allocated 3 minutes, not me. I can see you've only got a little bit left to go, so why don't you do what you need to finish the statement? So just press the button so it gets recorded and transmitted.
For these reasons, we respectfully request the Council retain the current arrangements and not proceed with the individual heritage listing of 18 Chester Street. We believe the individual heritage area protections already provide an appropriate level of heritage conservation while allowing our family to continually maintain and improve the home responsibly. Retaining the current status quo is, in our view, the best outcome for our family, the City of Subiaco and the preservation of the heritage of Chester Street. Thank you.
Thank you, and that brings us to the end of public statements. There were no petitions or approved deputations this evening, so councillors, I'll ask you to confirm minutes of previous meetings. We've got the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting of the 26th of May 2026. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor De Vries and Councillor Jones, thank you. I'll put that to the vote now. Okay, those minutes are accepted unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to announcements by the presiding member, and I'm pleased to announce that the project known internally as Project Ginder is now complete. Now, that's a working name for a project that's been used internally, but I don't think has ever been used externally. But I'm referring, of course, to our digital transformation over to Technology One's One Council and our corresponding organisational transformation. So as of right now, we have a modern enterprise-wide digital environment that spans a range of resident and staff operations. So it's live right now. And what it means is that there's now one place for residents, business owners and visitors to report issues, submit applications, make payments and track the progress of their requests online. And it's also improved processes for city staff, empowering teams to allocate, monitor and respond to requests efficiently across the organisation. And pleasingly, throughout this process, several outdated legacy systems utilised by the city have been decommissioned. Technology One are saying that the City of Subiaco achieved the fastest full One Council go live in Western Australia. And as high as Executive Vice President level, they're quoted as saying that this go live demonstrates what's possible with strong leadership from Council and collaboration with the people at Technology One to demonstrate rapid time to value. Delivered on time, it marks the fastest full One Council go live in Western Australia, a testament to Subiaco's commitment to modern ERP and its strategic transformation. So not my words, not the CEO's words, but the words of a senior vice president at Tech One. And they would know Tech One is now servicing the majority of councils across Australia. And I don't think they give out compliments lightly. They're an ASX 100 company, and they hold a market cap of approximately 9.3 billion Australian dollars. So I think they mean it when they say it, that the City of Subiaco's rollout has been a successful rollout. Having said all this, it's not all set and forget. There's still ongoing business improvement and discrete modules left to go live, but that's okay. Technology One has commissioned research into local government digital transformations and value realisation, and even the author of that research will say that digital transformations should not be seen as the end goal because there's no such thing. So we're very fortunate to have a business as usual team, I think headed up in this respect at least by our Director of Business Improvement. And I know from speaking to other mayors and local government leaders that this level of resourcing and this type of digital transformation shouldn't be taken for granted. So my thanks to the CEO, to the Director of Business Improvement, Lynette Solomons, to the project team, to the whole ELT, and also any managers and staff who've come along for the transformation. And it would be remiss of me not to also acknowledge councillors current and from the last few years. Thank you for resourcing the project and believing in the vision that was brought to us by our staff. Okay, so now I think we're getting very close to making some decisions this evening. Let me just turn to the possible en bloc vote that I've got in front of me. There's a number of items in the agenda that are not the subject of any special voting requirements, are not the subject of any amendments or alternatives, and are not the subject of any disclosures of interest. The possible en bloc item I've got in front of me at the moment would consist of items C1, C3, C4, and C7. Councillors, did anyone want to remove any of those items? You did. Yep, so C1 is therefore out, leaving only C3, C4 and C7. Councillor Johnston.
I'd like to remove C4, thank you.
Okay, a possible en bloc vote on two items, being C3 and C7. Councillors, are you happy to vote on those two items en bloc? I think that would be a yes. So, councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder for the en bloc vote? Councillor Burns and Councillor Pine. Thank you. I'll put that to the vote now. Thank you, councillors. The en bloc vote is carried unanimously, which means that items C3 and C7 are carried without debate as recommended by our staff in the meeting papers. Therefore, let's go to the top of the remaining list of items, beginning with C1, the draft Shenton Park Precinct Local Heritage Survey, preparation post-advertising. We did have the declaration by Councillor Powell. It's not one that requires you to leave the room, Councillor. Therefore, we've got the officer recommendation on C1 in front of us. Do I have a mover and a seconder for C1? Councillor Fife, thank you. Councillor Burns. Councillor Fife.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I would like to thank the City's Heritage team and the 7 community members whose dedicated work has produced a comprehensive and thoughtful survey of places of heritage significance within Shenton Park. Their commitment, along with the enthusiastic embrace of heritage values shown by the overwhelming majority of residents and owners included in the survey, reflects the strong community pride in this area. Shenton Park is without doubt one of the finest places to live. Its enviable urban forest, the iconic Lake Julbup and the magnificent playing fields and public amenities at Rosalie all contribute to its unique character. Alongside these natural features and recreational assets, the precinct contains many well-preserved buildings and features that offer a valuable window into the history and development of our community. It is important to emphasise that the Local Heritage Survey is exactly that, a survey. It does not impose consequences or statutory consequences on individual property owners. Rather, it provides an informed and accessible record of places that contribute to the cultural heritage of Shenton Park. This updated survey identifies 12 additional places, adding to the 175 previously recognised places and 2 heritage areas already documented.
It strengthens our understanding of the precinct's heritage fabric and ensures that this information is available to the community and the Heritage Council of Western Australia. I also note the mention of the officers in the officer's report of the magnificent spotted gum at the kindergarten at Onslow Road, suggested by my fellow councillor Rick Powell. It is indeed a remarkable specimen, and at some future point, council may wish to consider its inclusion as in the significant tree register. For these reasons, I'm pleased to speak in favour of the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen. I too wish to express my understanding of the amount of work that's gone into this, even though I'm 3 pages shy of the 1,336 odd pages, but I'm nearly finished. But again, yeah, a lot of work's gone into it, and it's an extensive document. And while I'm saying thank you, I will at the same time note my appreciation for Director Petrosky with regard to the item that follows at C2 and the assistance he gave me on that one. Just while I'm thanking everybody, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone wanting to speak against on C1? No one else wanting to speak for? Councillor Powell.
Yeah, look, very briefly, I'd just like to endorse Councillor Fyfe's comments and thank staff, volunteers for all the work that they've done. And I'm also quite pleased that that very important tree has been included in the survey. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillors wanting to speak on item C1? If not, Councillor Fyfe, there is an opportunity to close. You don't need to take it. Okay, thank you. I'll call the vote now then. Thanks, Councillor. C1 is carried unanimously. So we'll move on to C2. There's a few moving parts to juggle here. There's 4 amendments that have been submitted by Councillor Burns, but look, first I'll see if there's a mover and a seconder for the officer recommendation. Councillor Jones, moving, thank you. Councillor Powell, seconding, thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Matt. Over the years, Subiaco has built a reputation as a place which conserves, celebrates and enjoys places of significant cultural heritage. Under the Heritage Act 2018 and our own heritage strategy, and in accordance with our local planning scheme, we perform local heritage surveys to identify places which may have cultural significance, but these surveys do not have any relevance with respect to development and therefore do not provide any level of protection for those places. The first level of protection which the city provides is done via the designation of heritage areas. This identifies areas where the buildings collectively contribute to the heritage of Subiaco, but the heritage protection provided by this designation only extends to developments which would affect the streetscape. People choose to live in these areas because they enjoy the character of the streets, and they're well aware of this heritage protection when they buy their homes. The next level of protection comes when individual buildings are recognised on the city's heritage list in accordance with the LPS regulations. When buildings have this type of protection, it does not mean that future developments of the properties is precluded. It just means that development applications should consider the effects of those developments on the heritage features of the building. This motion seeks to add 17 places to the city's heritage list after consideration of reports from the city's heritage expert and submissions from the public. These places already have some level of protection by virtue of being located within the heritage areas, but as noted before, this only protects their streetscape. Placing them on the city's heritage list will protect other heritage features which are noted in their listing. I noted in one of the officers' responses to an objection that the heritage assessments are made from the public domain. They generally do not inspect any private areas. Moreover, they pointed out that the true extent of alterations and remaining fabric can only be determined during the development application process. For me, this highlights that being included on the list is merely a mechanism to allow the city greater scrutiny of the wider heritage aspects of any development application. If a property is not on the list, then the planning officers and elected members cannot consider them when assessing the DA. It's very important to realise that being listed does not prevent future changes to the properties. It just allows the planning office to consider how those changes might affect those features when assessing an EDA. As we all know, officers have a fair amount of discretion in this process and recognise that there are always architectural trade-offs, so owners might expect to receive some dispensation in return for protecting these heritage features. It's also at this time that heritage assessments come under more scrutiny and might even be revised. We've received objections in relation to 4 of these buildings, but I'm not yet persuaded that these merit their exclusion from this heritage listing. I'm concerned that to do so risks creating an inconsistent approach to heritage, and I don't think that would be a good outcome for the city. All of the proposed inclusions were assessed by people with far more knowledge in the field than most of us, and I for one don't feel that I have the expertise to override their assessments. I feel that my main role as an elected member is to ensure that the city's procedures and policies have been applied correctly. Our job is not to do the officers' jobs, rather it's to make sure that they do their jobs properly and diligently. And in this case, I see no evidence to the contrary. Consequently, I support the officers' recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, we live in one of the oldest parts of Perth. Indeed, Subiaco was our form before Federation, and that means we've got a lot of heritage and a lot of history, and that's what makes this space so special and gives it much of its feel. Heritage matters, and preserving it matters. It's a living record of where we've come from, and it's an irreplaceable record. I think we all know the development pressures Subiaco is under, and we don't want to lose one of the key attributes that makes people want to live here, and what's more, brings people into the city. And look, I just want to follow up on something that Councillor Jones said. The difference between heritage area and heritage listing is that heritage listing applies to the individual property and its significance. Heritage area, as the officer report points out, is more about the streetscape and the character of the area. Now, as Councillor Jones has pointed out, there are 17 properties being recommended for heritage listing tonight. 13 of them have raised no objection to being listed, 4 have, and they're all subject of amendments. So, look, I'll leave it go at that to allow time to individually debate the amendments in detail.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen. I'd like to move a procedural motion that we proceed to the next item.
Well, if we're going to do it, we may as well do it now. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pine. Councillor O'Connor, if you'd like to speak to the procedural motion.
Thank you. We've received some very late submissions from owners on this item, and they haven't been able to be analysed in the same way that submissions that came in earlier have been able to be analysed by staff in the way that we have in the report and the attachments. Those owners have also not had the opportunity to discuss those concerns with staff. And I feel from a procedural fairness perspective that it's important this item is not progressed tonight to allow those comments to be addressed by staff and for the owners to raise those concerns and discuss them with staff as necessary. We've also heard from members of the community tonight who may have some outstanding concerns that they wish to discuss with staff as well. Also aware that councillors have been asking questions as late as this afternoon on this item, and I feel we would appreciate more time to consider the issues.
Thank you. Okay, we don't debate procedural motions, so I'll put that one straight to the vote. Okay, the procedural motion's convincingly carried on a vote of 7-2. Okay, for those with an interest in this item, what that means is that we won't be making a decision on C2 this evening. We have allowed ourselves and our staff some further time to bring back C2 in one form or another at a future council meeting. We won't be offended if you leave now, but thank you for joining us. Okay, thanks, councillors. We will move on to C3. No, we won't. C3 was part of the on-block vote. We'll move on to C4, the Subiaco Theatre Arts Centre. There's no special voting requirements, no amendments or alternatives submitted, but we did have this one pulled from the on-block. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder for C4 as recommended by staff. Councillor Johnston, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor De Vries. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen. I just have a question on this item. Can I just ask the question immediately?
Yeah.
Thank you.
A question through the chair.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to CEO Cameron. I had a inquiry from a community member around the wording of this item, which is standard for us, I think, and I wasn't perhaps able to explain it particularly well, and I'm asking it on their behalf and hoping that your explanation might be better. It's the wording where we have the officer recommendation that we give statewide public notice that the city proposes to commence the major land transaction, and the perception is that we have already arrived at the transaction. And that, I think, is a bit misleading. I'm just wondering if you can speak to that to clarify that. Thank you.
CEO.
Thanks through the chair. Yeah, look, it's one of those local government technical types of situations. We have not arrived at any major land transaction, but the way in which this is crafted is that the council must firstly give notice, public notice, to advertise, must be advertised statewide. And then even when the matter comes back to council, before you proceed or adopt to proceed, you must give consideration to any comments. The interesting bit about when this actually comes back and is to proceed, it's once again, we don't have anything on the table. So it's a requirement of the Act that if it was to make a major land transaction, you must have gone through this process first. So all it is giving notice, providing an opportunity for people to make comment, and then that will also open up opportunities whereby the state, for example, and others can have conversation with us around the longer term future of this particular building, mainly the building. So it is just words, I think, that the local government requires under section 359, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're proceeding firstly by this resolution, or even when it comes back, when it says proceed with the business plan, that just allows us to consider options as to how best we can reimagine this building and make it live for many more years beyond 1957 from when it was first created. So it actually doesn't mean anything other than that.
A follow-up, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. And the other question, there was a couple of other questions relating to the business plan that it is quite vague. So for the community to comment on that, because it is vague, there's a number of purposes that you've mentioned in the business plan that it could be used for. Could you just sort of speak to that a little bit? And also, if you don't mind me asking a double whammy question, that it may not actually result in a major land transaction, which you sort of alluded to, but thank you.
CEO.
Yeah, that's correct. It definitely may not result in a major land transaction by advertising and then proceeding. That does, even once you get to the proceeding. So, for example, we did a business plan which related to, we advertised, got feedback, and at the same time a tree was registered by council, and we decided not to proceed with that, and we built a pocket park and sold some properties. But even if council were to proceed once they receive feedback from the community, that does not mean that a major land transaction would be enacted, because it depends on the value of the improvements and those sorts of things. So we would like the building to be upgraded and uplifted in terms of, to make sure we can look after this building. So depending upon the value of that would necessarily mean, but it could just be some other mechanism, a lease that continues in a similar way to it has since 1984, and that would not constitute a major land transaction. However, if those proposals to sort of uplift the building and all that were of that value, I think it's just under $4 million, then that would constitute a major land transaction. So it's just a technical local government requirement that gives the council a lot of options. How would people respond to that? It's a good question because it is vague, because we don't have anything on the table yet. I suppose what they could do is say they're supportive of the different types of functions that we may wish to consider in the future, including what's currently the performances, etc., that are currently undertaken there. So yes, you're required to consider those comments, but I acknowledge that it would be a little bit difficult because there's not a specific proposal on the table.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Johnston, did you want to speak to the item now?
No, thank you.
Councillor De Vries, the seconder.
Ordinarily, we wouldn't bring this item to, discuss because it is just a procedural process and something that's an administrative requirement under the Act. So in the past, when we've had major land transactions, that's just kind of gone on block. But I appreciate the questions that, led to this being discussed. But I do, just want to reiterate what CEO Cameron has said, that advertising the business plan does not commit council to any particular leasing outcome. And again, rather it is a procedural step that enables leasing discussions and assessment of future tenancy options to progress. If we don't do this, we limit our options. So this is all about keeping our options open. We're not committing to anything. It gives us plenty of room to move, but also a chance for really robust discussions. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen, and as you see fit. Please forgive the silliness of my question, but it's more for the clarity of the general public, considering some of the things that have taken place in the, and I don't drag this up for any particular reason other than there's a correlation, but in the national storage case, we actually included one of the possibilities in the major land transaction that we operate, that we could consider to even operate the rental business ourselves, was included in it. So I'd just say that for the sake of reference. In this particular case, and I'm going to presume I know the answer, that if in essence, seeing we're moving chess pieces around our portfolio with regard to what's happening at 241 or not happening with 241 or all sorts of buildings that are mentioned continually, right, that it would not be outside of the realms of possibility that this particular item wouldn't come before we've put the matter of 241 into the CEO's hands, and a part of that is looking at multiple options across the board, and the concept of using this building in some fashion for our own use would not be legally excluded in moving forward. I see the CEO nodding, so perhaps if you could just ask perhaps it to be verbalised if you wish to, Mayor McMullen. You see where I'm coming from. I'm not suggesting we move into 241. I'm just trying to let everybody know that everything's before us with regards to our properties. Thank you.
CEO.
Yeah, thanks. Hopefully this will answer the question, Councillor Burns. Yeah, everything can be achieved, and that would that option would not force a major land transaction. But other options may. So, and a business plan, this is more when it comes back, I suppose, but it never ends. So you've done it once, that's all you need to do. If there is some type of commercial or that type of arrangement where it kicks over the value, or it could just be non-commercial but still kicks over the value, maybe to proceed as it is or to be used for some other purpose, including the city using it for whatever it wishes. So all of those things can happen. The idea that you would do this is just to give effect to the ability to do something perhaps similar to what happened in 1984. But that was before the Local Government Act. So the state government moved in and renovated, etc., and then it was a peppercorn lease. That could still happen, or something else. But every other option of every other building and anything else that the city wishes to do, it could, noting that it is a Crown Reserve and it's vested for a particular purpose.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor McMullen, I appreciate the clarity, and I'm sure there are many people that are looking at what we're doing lately, but I appreciate that response as well. Thank you very much. I have nothing else.
Councillor Powell.
Yes, I think I might have been speaking to the same person as Councillor Johnson. And I think you have largely answered it. But the question was, how can the CEO give public notice when there is no defined transaction, major or otherwise? So how can you actually do it?
CEO.
Sorry, what was the first bit of that question? Apologies.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor. How can the CEO give this public notice when there is no defined transaction, major or otherwise?
The Local Government Act allows for a council to advertise and also proceed with a business plan. And there's the requirements under the Act articulated in Part 6 of the business plan, which sets out what the local government is required to do. It's not unusual for a Section 359 business plan to be, how can I say, somewhat vague, to allow the options that council consider. So it's entirely appropriate. There is a reporting mechanism on, I think Councillor Byrne mentioned the possibility of another type of business, Section 359, which was for trading purposes. In all of the business plans that we've eventually approved and effected, they're also included in our annual report. There's a statement relating to each of those and the financials around it. So it does trigger a high level of requirement to report back on it, but also it is, as I said, a statutory requirement. It's not unusual to advertise something where there's not specific information, but to be advertised in a way that gives council many options. Now, even when this comes back, if council approve to proceed, there would be many other council decisions that would actually affect if it turned out to be a major land transaction. So there's still plenty of times when this matter would come back before council, but it's certainly appropriate for it to be done. It's certainly in the Act, and it's a good mechanism to allow the public to understand opportunities that council may consider.
Councillor Powell.
Look, I thank you. I think that also answers the other question about why doesn't the city call for expressions of interest in leasing the building first? But from what you've said, you can't until you actually do the major land transaction first.
You could, but if you did so, it would rule out a range of things like potentially a major refurbishment of the building, because that might be of a magnitude greater than what would trigger a major land transaction. So you completely limit what you could possibly do. You might not get the major renovation that we're hoping to achieve out of it.
Okay, we've heard from the mover and the seconder. We've had several questions. Did anyone else want to speak or debate, I should say, debate item C4? Not a great deal to close on, Councillor Johnston. You happy for me to call the vote? I'll call the vote now. Thanks, councillors. C4 is carried unanimously, which brings us to C5, the review of the register of delegations and authorisations from council to the CEO for the coming financial year. This requires an absolute majority vote to pass. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the officer recommendation on C5? Councillor Jones moving, Councillor De Vries seconding. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the register of delegations and authorisations was last approved by the council, there have been some changes to state laws and regulations, and these need to be reflected in the register. Some of the adjustments which this motion recommends are simply amendments to references. However, there are also changes required due to the new WA Planning Commission instrument of delegation, which requires local governments to delegate planning powers to officers and prevents councils from having any part in those planning decisions. This review is a statutory requirement, and the amendments are all due to statutory changes, so this council has no option but to accept these changes. I therefore support the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor De Vries. Any speakers against? Okay, there's probably not much need to go further in the debate unless anyone wants to speak for. No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, I'll put C5 straight to the vote. Okay, thanks, councillors. C5 was also carried unanimously, which would bring us to C6. There was someone earlier indicating that they might appreciate a short recess, so I think I'll call that now. I'll adjourn the meeting until 6:40. I'll see everyone back here at 6:40. 6:40, so we're back on with item C6, the annual budget for 2026-2027. There were 2 amendments submitted, but I'll start with the officer recommendation. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Powell, thank you. And a seconder? C6. Councillor De Vries, seconding, thank you. Councillor Powell.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support this budget. It continues to fund services and projects that standard Subiaco residents have come to expect. But let's get to the most interesting part that most people want to know about. The proposed rate increase is 2.9%. That's one of the lowest of any local governments in the state this year, I think. That's even as we are grappling with cost of living pressures. And look, this is just not once-off type of increase. This is the 6th year in a row, I think, that the council has delivered a rate increase well below inflation. What I think is particularly worthwhile pointing out is that while the rates rise by 2.9%, the total income to the city is forecast to grow by 4.6%. That difference is largely explained by a growth in our rate base from new apartment development. So, look, there is some benefits coming from increased density. I also note that this is a re-evaluation year, and with new rental valuations set by the Valuer General, it's always a difficult time, and it means that the 2.9% rate increase will not land evenly across every property. A few may pay not much more, but some will be paying quite a bit more. That's because the rental value of their property has gone up quite a bit, especially if they've added anything like additions, like extra bedrooms or bathrooms. They'll probably end up paying quite a bit more. It's also noting that there's a stark contrast in this revaluation between residential properties, which have risen by about 40%, and business valuations, which have risen by only about 6%. Because rates are apportioned according to relative valuation movement, residential rate payers will proportionately be carrying more of the load this time around. I think it's also worth putting on the record that this is about swings and roundabouts. A few re-evaluations ago, it was the business sector whose valuations rose most, and they carried more of the burden. Property valuations move in cycles, and over time these shifts seem to even out between the sectors. That context matters so that residents understand why their individual rate notices may move differently to the headline 2.9%, even though the overall increase to the city remains modest and well below the inflation rate. And look, to be honest, I'm not entirely comfortable on first glance that this budget shows expenditure exceeding revenue by about $5 million, because that's a meaningful gap, and it deserves scrutiny. However, the officer's report makes clear that this is not the start of an unsustainable trend. It identifies the gap as largely being driven by one-off expenditure, such as we heard tonight, the investment in digital transformation. But investing now in our digital capacity should make the city more efficient and better placed to serve the community in years to come, which is a reasonable use of one-off funds rather than embedding a structural problem. On balance, this keeps the overall rate increase low, captures the benefits of growth, and invests sensibly for the future. So I commend the budget to the council.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor De Vries.
It's hard to beat Councillor Powell when he does his budget speech. Thank you, Councillor Powell, for covering all the really salient points. It's easy to gloat. Subiaco, we're very fortunate. And yes, you're correct there, Councillor Powell. This is the 6th year we've managed to keep our rates really low. And obviously that's because of the commitment of the staff and the incredible dedication to excellence, which is reflected not only in the brilliant programs, which are part of what the city's doing, and a cursory reread of all the different programs that we have going. Just remind us that we keep within our budget. We have a little bit of an excess there, as mentioned, but we keep within our budget, but we're innovative within that. We're an exciting council that works to serve the community by keeping rates down, by doing the day-to-day things that councils must do well, but also going above and beyond with our digital transformation. So obviously, a budget, as I just said, is more than a financial document. It's a statement of our council's priorities and our commitment to delivering the services, infrastructure and facilities that our community has come to expect, while maintaining the city's long-term financial sustainability. So I've got to commend the administration for preparing the budget. Councillors, we can't take credit for that. But it does reflect an ongoing careful financial management and balances that need to invest in our community. And we also need to consider that we need to minimise the impact of any of our decisions that we make here on ratepayers. So that proposed 2.9%, as mentioned by Councillor Powell, is anticipated to be one of the lowest amongst the Perth metropolitan area and remains below projected CPI. But at the same time, there will be some in the community who will get rate notices that may increase by more than 2.9%, because that's due to the state government's triennial gross rental valuation, the GRV, which is outside the control of the city. So this budget is firmly aligned with our council plan, our second budget, with our 2025 to 2035 council plan. And it provides funding for projects that improve the livability of our city, make it safer, make it fairer, maintain the trees, maintain the tree canopy, and in fact increases our drainage is now very much upgraded so that we won't be experiencing flooding. We have green initiatives, we have streetscape initiatives, we have ways which we're making our roads safer, our footpaths safer. And we're doing fabulous playground renewal projects. We also continue investment in the city's digital transformation so that our services become more accessible, efficient, and responsive for our community. So it's importantly, this budget invests in maintaining and renewing, which is so important, the assets that our community relies on every day. By continuing to renew infrastructure and plan responsibly for the future, we reduce the burden on future generations and at the same time ensure that Subiaco remains a vibrant, attractive and sustainable place to live, work and visit. I believe this budget strikes the right balance between fiscal responsibility, community investment and long-term sustainability. For this reason, I'm pleased to support the officer recommendation.
Okay, before I test the amendments, was there anyone who wanted to speak against the agenda item at this point? Okay, we'll test some amendments now. We've got two, both submitted by Councillor Johnston. Let's deal with them in the order they were submitted. Councillor Johnston, your Amendment 1, asking the CEO to prepare a differential rates report. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Burns, thank you. Okay, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, thank you. The amendment is that Council requests the CEO to prepare a differential rates report for the presentation to Council by April 2027, detailing the options, statement of objects and reasons for implementing differential rating categories and consultation strategy for the 27-28 annual budget. So this is simply asking that this report's done so that we have the data next year and we can consider it and decide whether we want to implement differential rates. So that's really all it is. It doesn't mean we're going to move to a differential rating system. Really, we made the decision for this year not to implement differential rates, and all this is doing is saying, let's have the data for next year and review that again. And I think it's timely to review it again next year because the GRV has come in this year, and it would enable us, if we wanted to, if we decided it was prudent, that we could implement a differential rating next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Burns. Speakers against the amendment. Councillor Jones.
Love it or hate it, one thing you can say about having a single rate in the dollar across the entire local government area is that everyone is playing on a level field, even if we don't like the game. Over time, the balance between residential and commercial GRVs will shift from one to the other and back again, but everyone's always paying based on the expected rental return of their property, using a methodology which has been decreed by the state. I recognise that the intent of differential rates is to try to smooth out the swings, but as soon as you implement these, you're inevitably going to disadvantage some people in order to mollify others. This year, we're expecting to see complaints from residents about the increase in their rates. I doubt that any of us are looking forward to seeing our rates bills, but it's fairly easy to point out that this is nothing to do with the city. It's all due to decisions made by the state government and the Valuer General that we have no control over. I don't believe that it's possible to come up with a method for determining the differential which would satisfy everyone. So I'm concerned that if we were to implement differential rates, then we would immediately become a target for criticism. We probably wouldn't reduce the complaints anyway, and we just make ourselves more of a focus. I think the best way to keep rates low is to keep downward pressure on our costs. So I'd much prefer that to have the officers concentrate on useful work rather than writing reports which I believe ultimately won't change anything.
Thank you, Councillor. You've got a question, Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen, as you see fit. Just as to Councillor Jones's statement, could I have some idea of the difficulty of the reporting? I have no way of guessing if it's 15 minutes or 15 years, so please.
CEO.
Thanks for the question. There is a requirement to do certain things, but the main bit of work will be the analysis on how you may differentiate. There's a range of different ways to do differential ratings. So you could do vacant land, you could separate between a range of different things. So there is a body of work that would need to form part of a few workshops, I would imagine, and then there is a process by which we'd need to bring that back to council for consideration, and then you need to seek feedback. So definitely this would give us enough time, because you'd want to do that work well before April, because if you were to advertise it, decide to proceed, then you need to do that by the 1st of May is when you can start to do it. So I can't give you how many hours for staff. Is a piece of work and analysis that we'd need to present first to the elected members and have a discussion. It depends on how many ways you like to slice it. So it is a body of work. I wouldn't say that it added significantly in terms of the number of staff that we would need to do it. We could do it within our existing resources, but it is a piece of work to do, as with most things that we do.
Councillor Fife, question or speaking on the amendment? Councillor Fife, a question.
Sorry, question to the CEO through you, Mayor. The degree of notice that you would require in order to prepare reports on differential rating and to conduct the workshops, this is potentially an anticipatory amendment that foreshadows a major complaint from ratepayers. That might not eventuate. So if there's a big backwash of opinion saying we don't like the way that the rating system works, and that came on the issuing of the rate notices, and that might be in August or September, would that allow time? Do we need to act on this now? Basically, that's the question. If we wanted to have that discussion.
CEO.
Thanks for the question. Through the chair, ideally it's better to know sooner rather than later. Then we can allocate resources to consider the matter. It may not solve the problem of, we could provide some analysis on that. May not solve the problem on a revaluation year, So there's reasons why you would do it other than trying to solve that particular problem, because in every revaluation year, there'll always be people's valuation that goes up greater than the median. So they're going to be impacted more. Sometimes they might pay less rates. I just encourage everybody to look at what the GRV says on their rate notice, divide it by 52 and decide whether that seems appropriate or not. You've got 60 days to appeal that valuation. But to answer your question, knowing sooner helps us to prepare the information and have conversation with elected members.
Okay, we've heard from the mover and the seconder and had a speech against. Councillor De Vries, did you have a question on the amendment? Yeah. Please.
Yeah, as a follow-up to Councillor Fife's query about the complaints that might come forward, in the past 6 years, this is through you, Mayor, to the CEO, in the past 6 years, has there been an avalanche of complaints about our low rates? Thank you.
CEO.
Through the chair. Unfortunately, we've only implemented Technology 1 recently, so I probably have that stat for you. But each year when there is a revaluation, it's not significant as far as I understand. And the advice that we usually give is, look, firstly, just check whether that valuation makes sense. Divided by 52, is that what you could rent it for per week? And you've got 60 days to lodge an objection with the with Landgate. But yeah, we do get some, because there are some that change quite significantly. And rating time is a busy time during the year, but it's every 3 years. It's what every local government sort of got to manage.
Okay, I'm going to look for a speaker for the amendment now. Councillor Pine.
Thank you. Subiaco lands, so I recognise that we're applying a single dollar rate across both residential and commercial properties. And this is what we've been doing for many years to ensure equitable distribution of the expenditure that we need, the equitable distribution of the revenue that we need to raise to support our expenditure. There's been significant discussion on this in the past, and and I understand that the last discussion on differential rate was held quite some time ago, including there's been quite a lot of changeover of the councillors. What I see is also there are a number of cities around us that are applying differential rates, quite a large number of them indeed. So that made me think about what would trigger a different approach to the way we allocate rates. Now, if I look at Subiaco, our landscape is changing quite a bit. We are having a lot of infill drilling. Some councils are applying differential rate of vacant land, which we don't have much of it. They're here, to be fair. But our landscape is actually changing. We're building a lot more apartments. We're grateful for the extra revenues that we're getting at the moment. So what Councillor Johnson is asking is actually to have, given our landscape is changing, or for us to think strategically over the long term, for the next few years, how do we want to actually do this? It takes time to have those types of discussions, so it's important to start early. I hear the question of Councillor Fife saying, when do we need to know? Should we be waiting to hear from the community to raise these questions to us? And on that, I feel as councillors, we are representative of the community. We need to be proactive, and we need to be able to test different tools that we have in our tool bag, essentially, test them, the pros and the cons, and just make a decision one way or the other. We're not asking to change things today. We're looking to actually make a considered evaluation of what would be right taking into consideration the changing landscape in Subiaco. Hence, I would support actually doing this piece of work well ahead of time and to have a proper discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaker against the amendment. Sure. Councillor De Vries.
Yeah, look, I'm kind of on the fence here, and I'll be really upfront, is I don't think this was the right time or place to do this, so I'm not comfortable about it being in a budget report. Like, that is just not the right time or place. We're here to discuss the current budget. We're here to evaluate the current budget. I understand the sentiment, and I understand the importance of transparency and having, you know, the fabric for a new council to evaluate things differently, and I'm perfectly fine about that. So as I said, I'm not entirely pleased that this has come up as in the budget. However, the motivation is fine, you know. It's like, yeah, we need to have like a discussion, we need to bring it to council. It just could have been done differently. I understand the purpose of it. I'm not going to oppose it, but I would say in future, I think we could just kind of consider where we place things. Like a budget, the annual budget's not the place for us to suddenly like shift the direction of the budget report. So yeah, thank you very much for the points being made in favour of the discussion. I'm all for discussion. I'm all for looking at different things, but I think we have a very good system. I wrote, you know, I finished my diploma of local government last year, and I, you know, discussed and researched, you know, the different options, and I've always been comfortable with how we do things, but I think it's fine because a new council deserves to have the opportunity to evaluate things. So yeah, for that reason, I will be supporting it, but I just wanted to sort of put on the record that wrong time, wrong place. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if that was a speech for or against, but I'll take any. Okay, a speaker for the amendment. Is there a speaker against the amendment? Councillor Powell, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, no, I'm not in favour of this amendment. In fact, for me, it's somewhat out of the blue. I only became aware of it last night. And for me, this is a very weighty issue, and that's not enough time to consider what could become quite divisive. And the supporting reasons provided for the amendment are really quite scant. Nor am I aware of any community appetite to put differential rates on the agenda for tonight. And make no mistake that while the amendment calls for a report, it is a prelude to council making a decision on differential rates, presumably one for residential and one for business. Otherwise, what are we going to do with the report? And this is a potential can of worms, as debates over rates often are. As I mentioned in my opening address, re-evaluations bring highly unpredictable results. One time it's business that cops the bigger hit, next time it's residential. But over a cycle, it evens out. We have a pretty simple system with a uniform rate. So there's not a lot of room for division about who's being charged more. We also have our own unique circumstances, which, with all due deference to Councillor Pine, we are different to other councillors. So looking at other councillors is not comparing apples with apples. We are, I think, close to unique in some of our circumstances in that only half our income comes from rates. The other half comes from investments, fees, charges and the like, and the occasional grant. Other councils, many of them get the majority of their income from rates. That's because they don't have a big investment portfolio. And in Subiaco's case, as I understand it, that with only half our income from rates, over the longer term, this is usually balanced out fairly evenly, with half coming from business, half coming from residential, a 50-50 split. And as I said, I'm not aware of any current appetite or push in the community to change that. Now, maybe if there is an outcry after this re-evaluation, which I concede it's been quite extraordinary, this one, then maybe it might be time to take a look at differential rates. But I don't want to jump at shadows before we actually have any people expressing concern about it. Let's not open a can of worms when there's no need for it at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. A speaker for the amendment. I mean, it's too late to speak on it. You're wanting to speak at this point, are you?
Yes, sorry. I just didn't see.
You've missed your chance, Councillor Burns. The order of call is the mover and then the second, then a speaker again, speaker for, speaker again, speaker for. Yeah. You're going to speak for it. Okay, noted. Do we have a speaker for? Okay, I'll take any further speakers at this point. Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mullen. Look, as others have said, I've also got reservations about this amendment. I'm also not aware of any community imperative for differential rates. As others have said, the lumpiness of the impact of GRV balances out over time. But I have particular reservations about the wording of the amendment because it locks in a time frame for a report to come to council. Now, we've heard from the CEO that it would be ideal for councillors to have at least 2 workshops on this matter. From the very small amount of research that I've been able to do on this since it was presented to us, it's a very, very complex issue. And as Councillor Powell has noted, it is likely to open up a can of worms just for us in terms of our deliberations. So I would not, while I'm not averse to a discussion about differential rates, I don't feel that this was the most appropriate way for it to be brought forward. There are other mechanisms. We have a workshop schedule, which we could have requested that the matter come to us for a briefing and then some workshopping. I am concerned that locking in a time frame of April may not be productive for either us or staff, and therefore I am leaning towards not supporting the amendment.
Okay, I think I'll enter the debate now. I will speak against as well. I'll speak against the amendment. Look, firstly, I think there is a timing issue and a process issue that Councillor De Vries and Councillor O'Connor have identified. I've seen this council defer matters for far less than this on matters of far lesser significance. So I think in the interest of good decision making, it would be appropriate to maintain a consistent approach there. And look, arguably, this isn't even an amendment to the officer recommendation in the true sense. I appreciate that I'm the presiding member and I can make the call, but sometimes I will take the view, no harm, no foul. And in this case, we may as well have the discussion tonight, and I'm more than happy to be having it. However, I don't support the amendment for what I'd boil down as 3 reasons. The first is that I haven't seen a need in the 9 consecutive budgets that I've been involved in on council. Yes, it is 9 in the row. I wouldn't usually play the veteran card, but it is a number of consecutive budgets, and every year the concept of differential rates comes up in one form or another. It's not new, it's not unique. Yes, other councils are doing it, but I haven't seen a need, and to echo Councillor Powell, I'm not aware of a huge community push that we should explore this. Secondly, I think I agree with Councillor Powell again that differential rates have the likely potential to become divisive, particularly if you consider that the usual use case for differential rates would be to impose higher rates on a particular class of property. I can't justify opening a discussion that might lead to that course, because I think we've got to be realistic. This isn't just asking about a report. It's setting in motion a process of decision making, which could very well lead to differential rates, which is quite a different way of rating to what the City of Subiaco has used up until now. And look, thirdly, I think the amendment does ask the wrong questions, in that it asks for a statement of objects and reasons. Who would be preparing the counter-arguments for the implementation of the differential rates? As far as I can see, the amendment doesn't ask the CEO to do that. So if we're going to talk about being locked into certain courses of action, maybe this does, maybe this doesn't, but it certainly presumes a course of analysis that interrogates whether or not we should pursue differential rating without specifically asking the CEO to provide the counter-analysis. So whilst you might whip up a report in an afternoon or something, there is also the workshop time to bear in mind, and also the need for a consultation strategy if this amendment were to get up. There's a whole body of work that would have to go into this initiative, which I think at its core I don't support and I don't think the community is calling for. Having said all this, I don't want to be negative. It's great that we can raise these questions and have these types of discussions, particularly when you consider that there's other local governments who face a far rockier road than us towards the adoption of their annual budgets. You only have to look across the river to look at councillors resigning from their respective councils as a result of the budget process. Here we, I suspect, can not only pass our budgets, but we can entertain the idea of a different rating method, and I think still get out of here in one piece. So I think there was value in asking the question. It could come down to a close vote, and whichever way it goes, I think the ratepayer will be better off in terms of this council having given the matter some analysis. But for my part, I'm not supportive of the amendment. So therefore, I'll exit the debate on that basis. Looking around the room to anyone else who hasn't spoken, and there was just one, Councillor Fife. Yeah, welcome to speak for or against the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, my belief is that council has an obligation to explore whatever options are open to it to look after the city's finances or city's parks or city's facilities in the best possible manner. With this particular one, I feel if it's not broke, we don't need to fix it. I think the points that have been made by the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor about the fact that there's a swings and roundabouts dimension to commercial and residential properties. No matter what your timing, if you put the timing in when it happens to be the swing on one side, the other side's going to feel, particularly disadvantaged by saying, "Oh, well, you changed it when we're about to go through, paying less next time or whatever." So I think you're right. I think it does open up a can of worms. I think the fact that the city has gone through for the last 9 years with great financial stewardship. We're in a solid financial position. It's not controversial, even though you're going to get grumbling at every turn because someone's always going to get a big hit from their extension or from the gross rental value going up. So I believe that it's well-intentioned. I believe that we need to explore various options, but I don't think this is the time to open this particular can of worms.
Thank you. Okay, we don't close on amendments, so I'll therefore put the amendment to the vote. Okay, the amendment is lost on a vote of 3 to 6. So we'll move on and test Councillor Johnston's second amendment of the evening, also an amendment on C6. An update to section 4. An update to attach an update to a line of the budget. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the amendment as submitted? We'll have Councillor Johnston moving. Obviously, do I have a seconder for the amendment? So I didn't explain that very well, and I know it was circulated previously, but it's the amendment that the annual budget be updated in section 4.1, which deals with the council plan projects to include a statement relating to the civic precinct redevelopment project. So Councillor Johnston moving, Councillor Powell seconding. Excellent. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor McMullen. Yes, the amendment is that the 26-27 annual budget in attachment 1 be updated in section 4.1, council plan projects on page 6, to include the following statement. Civic precinct redevelopment project, 1.3 million allocated from the operating budget to implement the council resolution of April 26 and any subsequent council resolutions. The reason being that 241 Rockaby Road is of widespread community interest. It's a line item in our council plan, And at the moment, the annual budget, annual plan don't specify the budget amount. It's captured within the materials and contracts item. So it's really as a matter of aligning with local government principles of open and accountable government that I think should be included. I spoke to staff yesterday and got quite a lot of assistance with the wording of this amendment and where it would be best placed, and in discussion with our new director, Connolly, we determined that this was the best position in the annual plan. It's in the easy to read, easy to digest section of the annual plan, in line with where it falls in the council plan. Yes, I would hope this one's no biggie for everyone, and it should be an easy decision, I would expect. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I agree with most of those comments. It is transparent. It is accountable. And the staff have raised no objections to it, so I can't see that there's any problem with it.
Well, I'll ask if there's any speaker against. I don't want to jinx it. I'm sure it is a no biggie, but are there speakers against the amendment? Okay, any speakers for? Councillor Pine.
Thank you. So I support the amendment that Councillor Johnson has said. I believe adding some further description in the document will add some transparency to the project. It is worth noting also that 1.3 million is subject to a future council decision. It's not a done deal that we will be spending 1.3 million. However, prudent budgeting, we are making provisions for, some amount of money to spend on the project, should council decide to proceed. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. We're lining up to speak for now, I think. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Mayor McMahon. Very briefly, I'd not happy about the money, but that's not what I'm speaking to. I will, moreover, note that this was verbally identified by the CEO at the agenda briefing, exactly what it was. So we're just literally putting what he said onto paper. It'd be hard not to support it, and it's already been it's already on the record. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other speakers? Otherwise, Councillor Fife.
To
the amendment, I should say.
Yeah, and through you, Mayor, I'd just like to, in speaking in support of it, commend Councillor Johnson for bringing this to a more prominent place within the budget, so that it is more visible to the ratepayers about where their money's going. So well done for picking it up and for bringing it to council.
Okay, last call for any speakers. I'll put the item to the amendment to the vote now. Excellent. The amendment is unanimously carried, which means that we return to the substantive motion as now amended. So the motion at C6 is as per the officer recommendation, with the change as just carried that will include a statement about the civic precinct redevelopment project in the annual budget. Okay, just thinking back a step now, we heard from Councillor Powell who moved, Councillor De Vries who seconded. I will take speakers against C6. Okay, speakers for? Councillor Pine.
Thank you. The scope of the budget was reviewed extensively in workshop, and as mentioned by Councillor Powell, a balanced budget has been prepared. It is worth noting that the operating expenditure is higher than operating revenues. What I'd like to point out is actually the ability to execute all the scope has been reviewed. And we do know that in the current environment, some of these works are subject to contracting timelines, availability of resources, and some of the works may slip potentially, as was the case this year. The scope of the operating expenditure does include some one-offs, which was pointed out, 2 million for digital transformation, 1.3 million civic centre, and 0.4 million for the depot. These are the big ticket items, which some of these are in feasibility design work. And the last two projects that I mentioned, the civic centre and the depot, are subject to some further council decision making. Hence, on balance, the CAO has taken the view that the operating budget is likely to come balanced, and it is the view that I also form. On the capital side, the city is looking to spend a similar level of expenditure next year, around 17 million, as it was in this year, but it is actually lower than what was budgeted this year. Again, this will be mostly funded through reserves and grants, which are actually a lot of work goes beyond securing the grants. The ability to execute is also subject to timely scoping and contracting. So it is good to see money to address the black spot at Rockaby Road and Thomas Street intersection, which is not really highlighted in the report. The Shenton Park Community Centre and the Rockaby South improvements. These are the big ticket items. The last two projects, which is the Shenton Community Centre and Rockaby South, did experience slippages to scoping and contracting this year. So an increased amount of money will also be spent on the upkeep of our green spaces. So on balance, again, on capital, the amount has been benchmarked to what we can actually physically execute this year. And the areas that we're looking to target are actually good areas for the community. So I'd like to commend the city for keeping the rate in dollar increase to 2.9%. We're fortunate to have more ratepayers increasing, allowing the city to minimise the rate increase combined with a balanced management of expenditure and investments. This will be felt differently across ratepayers and commercial players due to the gross rent value increase of residential 40% and commercial 6%. I acknowledge in the past this swings around about, and this creates fluctuations every 3 years, unfortunately. So I do want to thank the city staff for taking the time to explain the budget to councillors and address all of our queries and challenges, and there have been many of those. So a big thank you to you for actually supporting us through the process, and on balance, I fully support the budget that is being proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, through you, Mayor McMullen. Council has, as always, worked carefully and diligently to develop our annual plan and associated budget. We've had 3 detailed workshops with the city leading up to this agenda item, and I think it's fair to say that councillors have interrogated the figures deeply and rigorously. And the rigorousness of the budget process is particularly important at a time of rising costs for everyone. And of course, rising costs apply just as much to the city as they do to everyone else. We are also, like everyone else, being impacted by external forces, particularly conflicts and instability in other parts of the world. And the increase in the rate and the dollar in this budget reflects that. It just wasn't possible to keep the rate the same it's been for the past 3 years and continue to deliver what Subiaco needs and wants. We could have looked at deferring some of our projects to future years, particularly perhaps our capital works, but that's a slippery slope. There's no knowing when or even if costs will come down, the work will still need to be done, and next year there'll be other projects that then also need to be done. Better to get on with things now. Because often there's a need to get on top of things in a timely manner, We're proposing, for example, to press ahead with several important road projects despite the rising cost of bitumen. And it's worth remembering that where these are repairs, the longer you put them off, the more expensive they become, and a relatively simple, shallow resurfacing job becomes a costly, disruptive road rebuild. Similarly, it's important that we continue to maintain our community infrastructure for current and future generations. And it's good to see this year we're progressing work on the much-loved and well-used Shenton Park Community Centre, but also our 2 well-used pavilions at Rosalie Park. And in the case of those, the city's costs are being kept low because those organisations that occupy them have been able to provide matched funding. Other examples of needing to spend money to save is the continued rollout of our LED street lighting replacement program, which not only means our lights are more economical to run, it also means light is shining in the places that it's actually needed, the footpaths and the roads, and not dissipating into the sky. In a cost of living crisis, it's also important our staff are remunerated appropriately, and there's salary increases in the budget in line with the agreement. At this time of year and at other times, you'll see commentary on how local governments don't need as many staff or are overstaffed because everything is now automated or increasingly AI is making things more efficient. Subiaco has indeed successfully rolled out a digital transformation project over the past 3 years to help staff efficiently handle the myriad of complex data it manages, and further enhancements are budgeted for in next financial year. But efficiency hasn't been the only driver for transitioning from old, outdated systems. Risk and data security are also critical considerations in today's corporate environment. And in thinking about the amount of the budget that goes towards staffing the city, it's also really important to remember that many of the tasks undertaken by local governments are not discretionary. That is, they are not tasks that council, we around this table, control or even have jurisdiction over. They are responsibilities that are delegated to local government from the state government. Important tasks like those around public health, environmental protection, cats and dogs, and increasingly planning and development. So my feeling is this budget before us is appropriate and proportionate and will deliver good outcomes for the City of Subiaco in line with our council plan.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? All right, I'll quickly enter the debate myself to speak for the item. I think most of the salient points about all the good things and the necessary things and the boring things in the budget have all been made out in one way or another. What I would observe, though, is that I think as councils, it's generally accepted we've got at least 2 main functions every year. One is to approve an annual budget and the other is the CEO performance review, both of which happen to fall this evening. So it's a big night for this council, but it's on this item, I think it's really just the tip of the iceberg. We've had at least 4 workshops on budgets and implementation of the council plan over a number of months. And in addition to those workshops, there have certainly been queries by emails and various other forms of communication, all of which I think that the ratepayer has a right to expect of its councillors and elected members, because it is an oversight function and value for money isn't achieved without that kind of oversight. Look, at the risk of sounding like a MasterCard ad, we've had 2 years of 0 increases, 4 years of 1.9% increases, but the number of hours that have gone into this year's budget by staff and councillors, I think, is countless. It has been a lot of work, but I think the proof is in the pudding, and 2.9% is I suppose it's 1% greater than last year's increase. So we're keeping rates low whilst responding to the same types of rising costs that everyone has to deal with. So my thanks to all the staff who have worked on this budget, and to councillors for the countless hours that have gone in to getting us to this tip of the iceberg, so to speak. So I'm very happy to speak in favour of the budget, and I'll exit the debate now. Has everyone else debated? I think they have. Okay, I'll ask the mover to close then. That would be Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think my fellow elected members have covered it more than adequately with a high standard of commentary, and I'd also like to thank the staff. And look, the only final point I'd make is when residents get their rate notice, their new rate notice, check the new rental evaluation. And if you disagree with it, you can challenge it with the Valuer General's office. So, thank you. That's it.
Okay, I'll put C6 to the vote now. The annual budget is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. All right, just discussing the mechanics now of agenda item 11.1, which is the elected member motion submitted by Councillor De Vries. Usually the submitter would move their own motion, but Councillor De Vries is leaving the room because of the interest declared earlier. So therefore, I suppose I will ask if there's anyone here who wants to move and second the motion. Councillor Powell moving, thank you. Councillor Burns seconding. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, yeah, I'm happy to support Councillor De Vries' attendance at the next 25 Nationwide Improving Democracy Transforming Politics for Women conference in Sydney next month. And I think it's entirely appropriate that Council authorise this under Policy 2.5 and the Local Government Act. And that's because furthering education, furthering knowledge can only be a good thing, not just for the elected member, but for the Council overall. High-functioning councils support elected members who seek out opportunities to sharpen their skills, test their thinking against new ideas and bring fresh perspectives back to this table. This conference is exactly that sort of opportunity. And Councillor De Vries has shown her ongoing commitment to professional development, such as spending a few years gaining a diploma in local government. Councillor De Vries and I are the longest serving councillors on this council, and to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time she's requested backing to attend a conference. And look, it's not any generic development trip. The Next 25 program brings together women parliamentarians, mayors and councillors from every tier of government in this country. The focus is on values-based leadership, systems thinking, collaborative problem solving and ways to combat what I think we see as a continuing decline in public trust in our democratic institutions. And look, from my experience of conferences, it's not just about the conference agenda. It's about networking, talking with others in a similar field of work and bringing back that knowledge as well. And that knowledge will be shared with a report by Councillor De Vries to the Council. And look, I noticed that the conference schedule actually runs over Friday and the weekend, so Councillor De Vries will be giving up her own personal time to attend. On the financial side, this request has been scrutinised by staff. The costs are moderate and fully budgeted for in the 2026-2027. And as I said, it's completely in line with policy. So I'd commend this elected member's motion.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Burns. Is anyone else wanting to debate for or against the motion? I think we can put this one to the vote then. Thanks, councillors. The motion's carried unanimously, which at present means a vote of 8-0. Okay, I don't think there's any new business of an urgent nature to deal with this evening. Therefore, that brings us to the confidential part of the meeting. I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder for a procedural motion under 7.1H of the Meeting Procedures Local Law that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 5.232B2 of the Local Government Act, while item 13.1 is considered. That section of the Act provides that a meeting may be closed to deal with a matter relating to the recruitment or employment of the CEO or a senior employee, including a review of performance. So do I have a mover and a seconder for the procedural motion? Councillor Pine, thank you, and Councillor Johnston. I'll put the procedural motion to the vote now. Okay, the procedural motion is unanimously carried, which means we'll close the meeting now and deal with 13.1 shortly. Okay, we're back out from behind closed doors, and I confirm that on item 13.1, Council resolved as follows. First, that Council endorses the content of the report titled Summary of EM Feedback on CEO 2025 to 26 Performance Assessment, prepared by Steve Cartledge Consulting Proprietary Limited, which was included at Attachment 1, including an overall rating of 7 to 8, which is successful performance. Secondly, Council adopts the proposed performance criteria, which were included as Attachment 2 to the agenda item. And thirdly, CEO Cameron's salary is increased by 3.5% from the first full pay period in July 2026. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the agenda. So I therefore declare the Ordinary Council meeting closed at 7:53 p.m. Thank you, staff, for a big month, and thank you, councillors, for a big month also. Good evening.